China doesn't need to take over the Pacific. It just needs to break the chain, and it knows exactly how. Right now, a quiet standoff is unfolding across a chain of islands, from Japan, through Taiwan, and down to the Philippines. To Beijing, these islands are a cage. To Washington, they're the key to containment. This is the island chain strategy, the U.S. plan to box in China before a conflict ever starts. The first island chain stretches from Japan's Ryukyu Islands, past Okinawa, through Taiwan, and ends near Borneo and the South China Sea. For China, it's an oceanic wall blocking their navy from breaking into deep water. For the U.S., it's a defensive shield, built on 70 years of alliances and forward bases. From this chain, the U.S. can launch air missions from Japan, deploy Marines from Okinawa, control sea lanes through the Philippines, deploy missile systems close enough to Taiwan to hit inland targets. In other words, if China wants to expand, this is where they have to break through first. Beijing's answer: A2AD. China knows the first chain is the choke point. That's why they built the DF-26 missile, nicknamed the Guam Killer. Range, 2,500 plus miles, enough to strike Japan, and enough to wipe out Andersen Air Force Base on Guam. And it's not alone. DF-21D. The world's first anti-ship ballistic missile, built to sink U.S. carriers at sea. And now, China's next step, hypersonic glide vehicles, built to bypass U.S. missile defenses entirely. Drone swarms, targeting American bases and ships faster than humans can react. Their goal: create a no-go zone across the Taiwan Strait. Push the U.S. Navy out beyond the reach of Taiwan. Break the first island chain. Without firing a shot. The countermove. The second island chain. The U.S. answer isn't defense, it's distance-controlled dominance. Enter the second island chain, stretching from the Marianas, through Guam, and down to Micronesia and Palau. Guam becomes America's unsinkable aircraft carrier. Based out of Guam, the U.S. can launch B-52s, B-1 bombers, nuclear submarines, missile batteries, and even space-tracking radar systems, turning the island into a forward strike platform. Even if China overwhelms Taiwan or blocks the first chain, the U.S. can still launch long-range strikes from 1,000 miles further back. And U.S. forces are preparing to move even faster. In 2026, the U.S. Army is deploying the Typhoon missile system, a 3,000-mile precision launcher capable of firing Tomahawks or SM-6 from mobile launchers that move before China can target them. This is layered warfare, a playbook of range, movement, and pressure. The silent line, the third island chain. This chain isn't discussed often in public briefings, but if you connect the dots, Hawaii, Midway, the Aleutians, if everything else collapses, if China dominates Taiwan, overwhelms Okinawa, and neutralizes Guam, this is the fallback line, the final barricade before China reaches U.S. sovereign waters. But both sides know this. If it gets to this line, the war is no longer regional, it's global. But there's a wild card. The Philippines. A resurgent U.S. ally in the first chain, the Philippines just reopened 5 new bases to American troops under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. These bases sit just 300 miles from Taiwan, inside China's strike zone. But they also mark a return to Cold War-style positioning. Fast forces. Forward deployed. Ready to move. But not stay. This isn't about occupation, it's about access, and the ability to burst forward when things go hot. The final question: can the U.S. hold Taiwan? Taiwan is the fulcrum. Destroy it, and the first chain collapses. But defend it, and the Pacific stays balanced. The U.S. has no legal obligation to defend Taiwan, but it has a strategic one. Lose Taiwan, lose the Pacific. And China knows if Taiwan falls, Japan becomes exposed. The Philippines becomes cornered. The second chain becomes the new front line. So, the U.S. is upgrading everything. Hypersonic strike teams, marine littoral regiments, undersea networks of sensors and mines, a fleet of 1,000 plus autonomous drones and naval vessels by 2040. It's a race, not just for territory, but for technological overmatch. This isn't just a map war, it's a test of national endurance, a clash of ideologies, a strategy 70 years in the making. To China, the island chains are a prison. To the US, they're a perimeter, and until one side surrenders its vision, the Pacific will sit one miscalculation away from war. Which island breaks first, Japan, Guam, or Taiwan? What happens after the island chain breaks? What happens when Taiwan falls, and the Pacific balance collapses? Because inside war rooms in Washington, Tokyo, and Beijing, that's already been simulated. Missile barrages, satellite-killing weapons, cyber attacks on GPS networks. In the first 3 days, both sides try to blind each other before they fire a single shot. In one Pentagon war game, the US wins the fight, but loses 2 carriers, dozens of ships, and thousands of troops. China loses even more, but it still lands on Taiwan. Both sides run out of long-range missiles in less than 3 weeks. Then, the war slows, and the real fight begins. Who can build faster? Who can reload faster? Who has the industrial power to outlast the other? There are wildcards too. Japan's rearmament, Australia's AUKUS subs, Philippine bases back online, and an army of autonomous AI drones, evolving faster than treaties. The war isn't really over Taiwan, it's over who controls the Pacific century. Trade routes, sea power, technology. The map is the battlefield, but the future is the prize. The only way to win is not to fight. But both sides are preparing for the day that choice disappears. A war in the Pacific wouldn't just sink ships. It would shut down 60% of global trade routes, cut off the world's supply of semiconductors. Economic fallout markets would crash overnight, factories would go silent, and the world would trigger the largest military mobilization since 1945. The chain reaction. If the first chain breaks, the treaty system breaks with it. Japan rearms. Australia goes nuclear. South Korea debates its own bomb. The Pacific turns into a domino line. One fall triggers the next. That's why the island chains aren't just geography, they're the fuse, and someone is holding the match. Drop your take in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for real-world military analysis. Strategic Defense Network posts every week.